everybody. Here we go. And jumping right into it. Well, God revealed something very interesting to me today about the general and final judgment that we will all face. And it happened as I was going, it happened right in Mass when I went to church. Okay? Let me tell you what happened first and explain how the vision came to me. Well, first of all, every single thing went wrong for us to get to Mass today. I was short of breath because I had to take a workout supplement just to get out of bed to make it to Mass on time. I didn't think I was even going to be able to do it. There was no parking space. We were late. It was really difficult to get in there. Finally get in there, and we had to stand up because there was standing room only at that point. And we got taken to the pew. We got walked up to the front, and there was an older man there, looked in his 60s or 70s, him and his wife, and when they went to let us in the pew, he took the Lord's name in vain and said about us being late, without having any clue as to why we were late or how late we really were, or whatever. And he took the Lord's name in vain in the middle of the church. So after we got into the pew, I made sure I said loud enough so he could hear me, this guy just took the Lord's name in vain right in the middle of the church. I made sure everybody around me could hear it. And then they judged me for a third thing. They judged us for a third thing. When the money basket came around, this guy took the money basket, instead of passing it to us, went to hand it back to the thing, as if he knew that somehow we weren't going to put money in the basket. What is it? My shirt? My haircut? What? How do you judge who's going to put money in the basket or not? So I was like this to the usher, or whatever it's called, and I took my money, all the money in my pocket, I slammed it in the basket while I was staring this guy right in the eyes. I was staring at him right like that. Slammed the money right in the basket, staring at his face while it turned beet red. So that's why I love real life. And I turned to my video and I said, I love real life. This ain't the internet. You try to shame me in real life, I will shame you as hard as possible. So what happened then is when the priest held up the communion, I received a vision to make things a little bit easier on me. And the vision had to do with the general judgment. Nothing happens for an accident. Any encounter you have with anybody, good or bad, happens for a reason, okay? God wants you to see how you're going to react to it so he can teach you something. Now, God showed me at the general judgment. See, there's a particular judgment. When we die, we are going to be judged right away. And wherever we end up, that's never going to change. Whether we end up in heaven or hell, that's not going to change. But then at the end of the world, there's the general judgment where God's going to judge everybody. He's going to judge nations. He's going to judge the United States in 2019 as a society and see if you were guilty of those sins, right? Now, what God showed me is that the blessed in heaven, the saints, will not be accusing anybody. But somebody like that man who wanted to falsely judge me based on nothing. And it's okay to judge if you use righteous judgment. The Bible says, don't you know that we the saints will judge angels someday? How much more the matters of this life? But it also says, judge with righteous judgment. But again, St. Paul says, is there not one among you who is wise, who can judge between brothers? So judgment is good as long as it's righteous and you make it with your mind and your heart and not with your eyeballs. Okay? So there is nothing that this person could have judged on my soul based on his eyeballs. But when he said, Christ, that he was taking the Lord's name in vain. I can't see any way around that. He was complaining because we had to go in. So God showed me that, someday, when you're being judged by your accusers and you're blessed and one of the elect, God showed that these accusers are going to come up to you. Because you're going to be able to see into other people's souls, and they're going to be able to see into yours as if you have a glass house. You're going to be able to see right through. And your accusers will come up to you, and they will make these accusations on your soul because they could see what you've done. Right? But God's already excused you, right? So, That is how they're going to be sent to hell for the general judgment. If you look at the word Satan in Hebrew, it means the accuser. I think everybody knows that. The accuser. So the way that the final judgment works is that, as the Bible says, it's not only God that judges. That's popcorn Christianity. What the Bible really says is that the apostles will judge and the poor will judge as well. Okay? And how does that work? Well, it all has to do with exactly where you're going to end up. See, Jesus says, in my Father's house there's many mansions. In heaven, there's different mansions for everybody. In hell, there's different places of punishment for everybody. So it's not only God who judges, but when you're the elect, your fellow saints will also judge with God where exactly you belong in heaven. And those in hell will judge the damned souls. Where exactly does this damned soul belong in our pit? So those who come up and accuse you are trying to pull you in with them. The damned will try to pull you down. The damned want everybody to be damned, especially the blessed. So when those accusers come and face you when you're about to receive your glorified body, that very accusation is what is going to send them to hell. And guess what? If you do it in this life, if you judge me right now, if you think I'm in a state of sin right now, I got news for you. I can't judge you that you're going to hell, that you're already dead, but you're like a person falling from a skyscraper. The principle of death is in you. Okay? And unless God saves you from that fall, you're going to land and crash. Okay? So if you're going to judge, you have to judge with righteous judgment. And if you want to judge somebody, say you're really concerned about him, you're like, oh, this guy is really loud. I don't like his attitude. Well, guess what? Send me a private message with your concerns, because if you attack me publicly, that is the sin of scandal. You're disingenuous. Okay? See, Jesus says, first take the beam or log out of your own eye. First do that. First take the beam or log out of your own eye. Go to confession, receive the sacrament like I just did. Okay? I just confessed my sins, just received the sacrament. My conscience is clear. Once you do that, then you're able to see clearly enough to take the tiny little speck out of your eye, right? So now I can see clearly enough to do that, to take the speck out of your eye. If I fall into sin, then I gotta worry about my own sin first. That's what Jesus' teaching on judgment is. It's not never judge anybody. Jesus says whatever judgment you apply to other people will apply to you. So let's take the homosexuals. Can a practicing homosexual go to heaven if they don't know any better, if they really judge it to be right? Yes, they can. They might burn in purgatory for a long time, but eventually they will go to heaven. Now, if they know that, for example, they say homosexual practices are wrong and they know that and they go out and do it anyway, well then there's no excuse. But see, in order to go to hell, there's a couple conditions that have to be required. You have to know that you're offending God, and you have to choose to do that on purpose, okay? And continue to do that, be stubborn and unrepentant, all right? Sins that you're not really responsible for, like, when they crucified Jesus and said, Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do, right? When Jesus said that doesn't mean they're not going to spend no time in purgatory for the objective sin they committed, which is deicide, the worst of all. So the people who killed Jesus, might be in purgatory till the end of the world. But they could still get to heaven because Jesus himself said, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they do. And again, when you're in purgatory, God is not going to let you even see all your own faults, because if you dwell on yourself, you'll never get to heaven, okay? This comes from, by the way, St. Catherine, who wrote the treatise on purgatory. And the thing is that you in purgatory, you will be in more pain than this earth is capable of, but you will be so focused on God, you won't even consider yourself for your pain. You'll be so drawn to God. The real pain of purgatory is being drawn to God but never being able to see him. Picture the person you love most in your life. If you have a husband or wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, and not being able to see that person. They're across the country, for years, and you just longing to see them, and that's suffering, but you're going to see them for a fact. So your hope is real solid. All right? So that is my message today, is that judgment is a sticky issue. We are supposed to judge, but Jesus' message is the best. First, take the beam out of your own eye, and then go out and judge. Okay? You are supposed to judge, but there's instructions to it. And that's what I want to share to you today, that the accusers will be accusing nobody but themselves in the end. And when you judge somebody, you don't do nothing to them. If you judge me, it doesn't do anything to my soul. You judging me as bad isn't going to make God condemn me. God doesn't need you. God doesn't need your opinion to judge me, okay? Do you understand that? If I'm in heaven and you don't like that I'm there, God's going to send you to hell, right? So when you judge somebody, you're revealing something about yourself. That's why if I'm judging somebody, I got to make sure I'm not guilty of that same sin, right? Because I'm not a hypocrite at all, right? All right. Good afternoon.